Welcome to the Dead Arm Dynasty podcast, where we try to give a refreshingly candid take on the long-term fantasy value of football players throughout college and the NFL for all you Devy League, Campus to Canton, and Dynasty fantasy football managers. We're just three friends who spend all our time talking fantasy anyway, so we figured why not get a few mics and capture our conversations. My name's Rick, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Josh Pecoraro and Jacob Ellis, aka Jealous. Last week we began our draft recap for the rookies of the 2021 class, what their fantasy impact is going to look like for the upcoming season and beyond, so you know how to plan ahead for your Dynasty leagues and Devy leagues, see where you should value these players. We covered quarterbacks and tight ends last week. This week we are going to jump into running backs. So let's jump into the obvious top fantasy asset at running back, who was drafted at the 124 spot to Pittsburgh, Najee Harris. Seems like a slam dunk workhorse of a running back. Where do you see him falling in terms of fantasy value this year and long term?
I think if you're in your rookie draft, he's your 101. I mean, you've got, like you touched, Eric, he's a workhorse running back. He's going to be in there for 3 downs with just somebody coming in to spell him every once in a while if he's tired. Great production at Alabama, running against some of those big SEC defenses. Got good hands. He's shown he's able to catch the ball out of the backfield as well. So Ben Roethlisberger will like that as a check down option. Seen a lot of production in the past from Pittsburgh running backs, whether that's Lev Bell, whether that's James Conner. So
Tomlin likes his workhorses.
Yeah, Tomlin absolutely likes workhorses.
You even saw that production with Willie Parker.
Yeah.
I mean, going back that far.
D'Angelo Williams.
And these guys being used as 3 down backs, Tomlin doesn't really do a 3rd down back unless he has to. Ideally, if he has a guy that can be a receiving back and an every down back, he's going to use him in that way. And Najee, if you're going to take a 1st-round running back, you're gonna ideally use him in a 3-down role. So he's
especially
going
on a
to be
team
seen,
that's going to compete right away.
Right. So he's going to be on the field the whole time, and he did show something that was kind of a question mark from him this past year at Bama. He showed that he can receive the ball out of the backfield and set himself up well for some sweet yak yards. So I think like you said, Josh, slam dunk first pick of any sort of rookie draft, no question. And if it's just a regular dynasty or in a redraft, I think he's still potential for a top 10 running back.
There's 2 points I wanted to go back on too that just out of the rookie camp that they had this last weekend is Najee said that he sees a lot of similarities between the Bama offense and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense as well too. So that gives you some confidence as well that he's very confident in the plays that they're running, the schemes that they're running. So there shouldn't be too much of a transition for him as well, as far as even like the blocking schemes or anything like that to maybe limit him on getting on the field or being in on those passing plays for pass protection or anything like that. So I think you can lock him in. And then the other one is that there's rumors that they could see him getting 250 to 275 touches. And if that happens, I mean, any fantasy owner would be creaming their shorts to have a fantasy running back in there that's going to get that many touches and that much of an opportunity. So,
And we know that fantasy players love creaming their shorts.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about for us.
Summer streak!
Overall, I agree with you guys. Obviously, Najee's a beast. He's a slam dunk. Well, we can get into this part more later. I think he's a slam dunk in the rookie draft as the 102 pick, personally, but it depends on your roster's need, what you have plenty of versus what you are severely lacking, Kyle Pitts being the other guy that could be considered there, in my opinion. But yes, as far as running backs go, Najee is the winner there, and even in a dynasty startup, you can take him in the late 1st round. If you can get him in the 2nd, cool. He's going to have, hopefully, a long career and a great one at Pittsburgh because they, for all the same reasons you guys said, they love running with one guy all the time, and Mike Tomlin is a genius coach. He's going to get the best out of Najee. Pumped about him.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been a fear of mine about taking Alabama running backs just because of the disaster that Trent Richardson was. But let's be honest, Najee's going to Pittsburgh, where
the safest
Richardson-
location he could possibly go.
Exactly. And Trent went to the worst possible place he could.
True.
In
At
Cleveland.
the time. Yes.
Yeah, at the time.
The only downfall I could potentially see in a dynasty format, which you wouldn't have to worry about for a while, is he is older coming out of college. I believe he's 24 years old, so that is pretty old for a running back as well. So
That's right.
He
did redshirt.
He's going to be like after his rookie contract, he's going to be at because you'd figure 4-year contract, and then you could pick up a 5th-year option with him being first round. So, I mean, by the time he gets out of his first contract, he's going to be 29 years old. So that's a little scary, but just run him wild for 4 or 5 years
still
and
think,
just go
yeah,
to town. So
Yeah.
I think you ride it out for those 5 years that you get with the first round back, assuming they pick up that 5th-year option, and then go from there.
And his first few years at Alabama, he was not even on the field really. So
yeah.
as far as wear and tear on his legs, yeah, he's got a couple seasons of it at Alabama, but it's not any different than a younger guy who has a couple seasons of wear and tear on their legs. He's just a little older.
I would still say though, he this past season was his only season as like the number one only feature back.
Yep.
Even
Yeah.
the season before, he was they were splitting time with him and and some of those other guys. So this was his first season where he had real usage, full-time usage. So I wouldn't worry too much about the wear and tear.
No, and just how he's built too, is a big back, so he can take the hits. So
Yep.
He's proven that. Okay, let's jump on to the next running back who was actually picked one pick later at the round 1 pick 25 by Jacksonville. Travis Etienne, coming out of Clemson. She had a good pass catching year. This last year kind of proved that that's part of his game, and now rumor has it Urban Meyer has him practicing with the receivers at rookie camp. What's your outlook, long term, short term, on Travis Etienne?
I was very surprised when they picked him. With James Robinson having the year that he had last year, it was kind of surprising that they used their second first rounder to grab a running back. Travis Etienne had a decent college career. It just surprised me a little bit as well because he disappeared a lot in big games against good competition. So I'm curious to see how his game translates to the NFL. It'll be interesting to see where he slots in, if he's just a pass catching back to start off and they let James Robinson have the first 2 downs. It's kind of a battle to watch during mini camp to see. If you are the James Robinson owner, I think he is somebody that you need to have to help hedge your James Robinson pick. But his fantasy career, it could be decent, but I'm not real confident with him. I'd go with some of the other backs over him as well. The only thing that they have too is they got the connection with Trevor Lawrence as well, so I think that may have had a big play in why they drafted him, just to have him back there for Trevor as well to check down too. Trevor's comfortable with it, but I was very surprised by that pick.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of ETN myself. You'd think, okay, he's a first-round back, and they're going to be featuring him. Well, if he went to a team that didn't have James Robinson coming off of an awesome season, he's definitely like a boom-bust player, and a rookie boom-bust player worries me. But at the same time, I don't see him getting really a shortage of playing time, because I could see them doing packages with both Robinson and Etienne on the field, whether that's Etienne lining out, out wide or out in the slot, or maybe you throw Lawrence in the shotgun, then you got Etienne and Robinson, to his left and right. I don't see a shortage of playing time. I question what that production is going to look like. So I'm really torn on him. He wouldn't have been the second back. He's not the second back I would take in fantasy amongst these rookies. That'd be the guy that we're going to get to next. But Etienne does show a lot of flash, which so does Tyreek Hill, but so does, and
Cordero Patterson.
A bomb, but exactly, so does Cordero Patterson. So I don't know what to make him. At this point, hopefully he turns out. I think he could have a great career, possibly. I can't say for sure.
I've got a question for you though, Ellis. Are you concerned with newly signed tight end Tim Tebow taking away some targets from him.
Yeah, I see Tim Tebow being a very relevant practice squad contributor for Jacksonville. That's where I sit on that. Now, what I'm really excited for is when Trevor Lawrence, he's gonna have like a bad week 3 or week 4, and those fans are gonna be clamoring for Tebow to start at QB the next week. I'm so excited to hear about that. I cannot wait.
Tebow when he's completely jacked starting at QB.
Did you see pictures of him? He is huge now.
Dude,
Can't
he
even
looks
pull his
huge.
arm back to make a throw.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's why they had to keep him at tight end.
Yeah.
He can only push his arms forward, so at least that'll be useful for blocking.
He's just shot putting it out of the QB position. Yeah, I think you guys are right on ETN in that we don't really know what to expect. I was a huge James Robinson fan last year, had him in Dynasty, loved it. It was great. I thought I had found a diamond in the rough, and then Urban Meyer, the asshole, comes in and picks ETN in the first round. I could see a world where ETN's maybe like a better Chris Thompson or a healthier Chris Thompson, and I say that because there's a lot of tape of ETN just ramming right into the ass of his offensive lineman because he does not know how to read the backfield when it's not super gaping open for him to just plow through into the secondary.
And that's what makes me think that's what makes me think he'll probably get enough playing time, hopefully in the slot, to be doing shit like bubble screens and that kind of shit. Mm-hmm. Where that's where he would be best off.
Yeah,
effective in
absolutely.
space, fast player. He's got a place in this league for sure. I don't think that the first round draft capital makes sense, and I don't know that the fantasy value is going to match a first round running back draft capital either. So that's where I'm going to let other people do it because of the big name, big history of Clemson, big draft capital, the hype around Jacksonville. Personally, I'll let everyone else take ETN. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about him and Percy Harvin. Those two, I feel like, are a pretty damn similar player.
Really slipping into the Urban Meyer history there.
That's what I'm. Yep, going into that. I don't know. I mean, Percy was picked in the 20s, I believe, in the draft back then. Same with ETN. Both players that need that space to work. ETN can contribute on special teams just like Harvin, but was Percy really a guy that you wanted to start on a weekly basis, even when he was at his best? Not really. I mean, boom-bust guy, he's the definition of a boom-bust, guy. More relevant than Cordell or Patterson, but just because he would get the ball in his hands more often. But
yeah.
I think
I don't know.
One of the things too with ETN is, for those of you that are in rookie drafts, it's where you're going to have to draft him at as well. You've got a lot of quality wide receivers in the spot that you'd be deciding over as well. But I think there's a lot of other players in rookie drafts that you're going to get a lot more use out of right away versus him as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Similar situation a little bit with our next guy here. Arguably better talent, I think so. Javonte Williams, drafted by Denver in the second round at the third pick, joining Melvin Gordon in that backfield. What do you see in his dynasty and redraft outlook looking like?
I'm definitely a lot higher on Javonte than I am on ETN. Melvin Gordon, he's in his final year of his contract, and we all know Denver, they want to run the ball. They're going to be forced to run the ball, especially this year, if they're going to stick with Teddy and Drew Lock. Mm-hmm. So there's that. The other thing, too, let's say they trade for Aaron Rodgers. Well, you've seen what Aaron Jones can do when he's got that many red zone opportunities. He's the last 2 seasons, Aaron Jones has put up mad touchdowns. I believe he had 16 2 years ago. I think he had 14 this past season.
Sounds right.
And so Javonte, if Aaron Rodgers does end up in Denver, that's only going to help out Javonte. And if not, you got 1 year left of Melvin Gordon. Javonte Williams was an awesome back at UNC. I think that I would much rather have him over ETN.
Yeah, he was my number 2 running back coming out as well after Najee. So, and even he could have potentially been arguably a better prospect had he gone to a better situation too, where it was more clear what his role was going to be to start the season. I think, you draft him and be confident with him. I think Melvin, you've seen he's got quite a bit of wear and tear too, where he gets injured and doesn't necessarily play a full season. So I think Javonte is going to have a lot of work this season coming up. I think it'll be something where Melvin's your starter, and then Javonte just slowly starts taking over as the season progresses. So he's one that is kind of similar to what everybody thought Jonathan Taylor's role was going to be last year before Marlon Mack's injury week 1, where it was he's going to be sprinkled in here and there, get some work, and then as the season progresses, he's going to be the one that wins out the role. So you just kind of have him sit on your bench, sit there and wait, and then slowly you'll be able to more confidently start him as the season progresses.
Yep, totally agree. For me, the comp has always kind of been Lev Bell as far as what you see on film. Incredible patience and balance. This guy's got what it takes for the NFL. If the draft spots were different and Javonte had gone to Pittsburgh instead of Najee, he would be the number 1 here. Given his landing spot, Melvin Gordon already being there, having to wait at least a year before he's really taken the reins, he drops a little bit. But the talent's all there. So for Dynasty, fire him up, get him in the, maybe late second, third round, something like that. I mean, he's not going to have that immediate impact, but he will be big time in a year from now. So
that would be a strong place to draft him.
Yeah.
What's kind of wild? It feels like Melvin's been around forever.
So long.
It just does.
It's crazy.
He's 28. Feels like he should be like 35.
Same draft class as Todd Gurley, and that guy.
Yeah, and he feels like he's been around forever too. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's that weird thing with running backs where generally they are pretty much washed up around that like age 29.
That second contract.
Really going to be a starting running back at that point.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Let's jump into our next guy here. Trey Sermon out of Ohio State, drafted to San Francisco in the 3rd round, pick 25. Joining a crowded backfield before he got there, and then, of course, they go and grab another running back later in the draft. What is the outlook in San Francisco with this running back crew? What's the ceiling for Trey Sermon, or the most likely scenario in a Dynasty league?
I liked his tape coming out of college. I think he's a good running back. It's hard with San Francisco, as all fantasy players know, the last however many years you want to go back to, until probably since Frank Gore's been there. You don't know what running back to trust out of the backfield. Every game there's a different hero, and you still have Raheem Mostert there, Jeff Wilson Jr., you got Trey Sermon now, so whoever gets the ball is a valuable running back to have out of the San Francisco backfield, but it's tough to know when he's going to get in. Now, Raheem Mostert's up there in age. I believe he's 29, 30.
20, yeah, I think
20,
30 by the season start.
So he's way up there 29. In age. He's shown in previous seasons he can't get healthy, so there's going to be opportunity for Trey Sermon to take advantage in that offense. And they've got a great offense like we touched on earlier, got a lot of passing threat and everything. So great offense, great opportunity there for him to succeed running the football. So he's somebody you definitely take a chance on. Don't have high hopes right away, kind of see and feel out how it goes, but he's not going to be somebody you're going to be able to pick up on waivers. You're going to have to draft him at some point in time later on in the draft. But I think you can confidently start him mid-season or so, but it's just going to be tough.
I think Sermon eventually takes over that running back job. I like you said, mid-season, I think he's going to be their starting running back. I feel very comfortable. I would feel very comfortable drafting him, mid to late rounds. I see him as higher upside than Jeff Wilson, and A, it's only a matter of time until Mostert gets hurt or slows down, and B,
yep.
I mean, these guys get drafted for a reason. They want to use, especially with a 3rd round pick, you want to use that guy. So they're going to want to put Sermon out on the field. I think that you could see, let's say you got, him and Trey Lance, Trey Sermon. Those two guys probably going to be working the second team at least to start off the season. I could see them developing a pretty sweet relationship, and then maybe once Lance hits the field, that's when Sermon does as well. So I'm pretty high on him, even to start off this season, or at least, maybe week 4 or week 6. I could see him getting some sweet playing time, and that running back group, yes, it is a group of running backs. They've never really had a, at least recently they haven't really had a featured back, but I think Sermon can become that featured back, by mid-season.
I think it's certainly possible. I do think that after those first three guys, that's kind of where you draw your line and say the rest of what we see is gradually more and more questionable in terms of their situation and their number of touches they could get. There's definitely a chance that Trey Sermon becomes, I don't want to say the workhorse because Kyle Shanahan's probably just not going to do that, but the lead guy by midseason or so. But there's also a chance that doesn't happen. I mean, Mostert, when he's healthy, is really good and seems to bust off an 80-yard touchdown like every time he has a healthy game. And then Jeff Wilson, though limited in the number of opportunities he's been given, has been pretty dominant in Kyle Shanahan's system when he's been on the field, which is usually after everyone else is injured. So it'll be interesting to see what plays out in camp as far as, what they set the depth order to be before week 1. That way, when we know Mostert gets hurt, will it really be Trey Sermon up next? Will it be Jeff Wilson for a bit? Are they going to split time? This season, I'm not sure. I like the overall value because San Francisco's running attack is insanely good, and anyone who's going to touch the ball in their backfield will at some point in time be valuable. And in that respect, if you're in a best ball league, absolutely go get Trey Sermon and Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. They're all going to have their time to be awesome. Yeah, I agree with you guys as far as, mid-late rounds, just because we have no idea what they're going to do and when it's going to change. And it's a mystery, but he's got the talent and he doesn't have a lot of wear on his wheels so far. In his collegiate career, he didn't have a ton of time as a starter, which is great for his long-term value.
Where would you guys think about, okay, so just to get some gambling in here, Sermon's odds to win Rookie of the Year is at 40-1. So a $10 bet, if he won it, would win you $400. That feels like a bet that I would make.
I would not.
Yeah, I'm not confident that he's going to get enough playing time to warrant that award. I think he could have potential fantasy winning weeks towards the end of the season if you're in the playoffs, that somebody you can maybe get later on in the draft that will have a great role at the end of the season to get you some wins. But I just don't think his volume early enough on the season is going to be there to win the Rookie of the Year award, especially when historically that's gone to a quarterback too. So he's already fighting the odds too. Yeah.
He's got Trevor Lawrence as his
Lawrence is coming is the heavy favorite right away, but he could still. Andrew Luck didn't win it his rookie year. Mm-hmm. Granted, it was RG3 who was the number 2 pick, but
yeah, we got 5 round 1 QBs here. This is not an easy scenario for Sermon to walk.
And that's why those odds are what they are. But
they should be bigger.
Like I said, I'm higher. I guess I'm just higher on Sermon than probably you guys. Then
I like his talent. The situation, the backfield is a huge question mark to me.
Yeah, and just in regards to the Rookie of the Year award, he's a long shot to do that, and arguably.
Well, that's why the odds are what they are.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Exactly, but you've got Najee, too, that it's going to be tough to beat out probably Najee's stats just with Najee.
Some of those receivers, Kyle Pitts, any of these guys could do it instead.
After our running back draft recap episode aired, we had big news out of the 49ers camp regarding Jeff Wilson Jr.'s injury and him being out till mid to late season. So we wanted to provide you with an update on our take on Trey Sermon and his draft prospects looking for this fantasy season. I think Trey Sermon's going to have a great year now that Jeff Wilson's out. His path to success is a little bit greater now. You still have Raheem Mostert in front of him, so it's still going to be a big hit there as far as playing time right away. However, with Raheem Mostert's injury history, Trey Sermon should get ample opportunity to take over that running back spot earlier on in the season. He has great college tape as well on that, so I would expect to see some production from him. You're able to plug him into your lineup midseason. He's somebody I'd definitely look to be drafting now, especially with the history of the 49ers. You have great running back success as well. It's always kind of a crapshoot in regards to who that running back is going to be at any given time. But he's looking great for this year. Just the only other running backs besides that is Wayne Gallstones, which he's hopped around the league as well. He's more somebody you could probably stash later on as well too, just in case. But definitely in best ball leagues as well. Take a chance on any of the 49ers running backs. But like I said, Trey Sermon I think is going to be very productive for you, especially early on in the season to mid to late season as well. So we all really like his prospects.
Let's move on. Let's jump over back to the New York Jets. Picked Michael Carter in the early 4th round at the 2 pick. Also out of UNC, just like Javonte Williams. Seems to have most of this backfield to himself. What are your thoughts? You know, he might have an instant impact as a starting running back.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, just a little bit of background for the listeners. We just did our own rookie draft not too long ago, and I ended up with both Javonte and Michael Carter. So I've got a nice UNC studded backfield amongst the rookies. But the reason why I did end up taking Michael Carter as early as I did is because he does pretty much have that backfield to himself. I mean, you got Tevin Coleman out there as well, but I mean, he's a shot fighter at this point. You can't trust him. LaMichael Pirine, he's been given an opportunity. You can't trust him to put up numbers. And Ty Johnson, yeah, he's, you know, shown some flashes, but again, there's a reason why they took Michael Carter. They want him to be that guy, and there's really not much to slow him down. So, you know, in terms of competition, so I think he's plenty relevant.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more hesitancy on him just with his draft capital is a 4th round pick too. So it's not necessarily, we've got to play him right away. They can go in and see, okay, we've got Michael Pirine, we've got Tevin Coleman, you got Michael Carter. Let's let them battle it out during camp. You got a new coaching situation too, so we don't necessarily know what that offense is going to look like. And I would almost say that just from right now, Tevin Coleman probably has the odds-on favorite to win that job just with his familiarity with LaFleur's system that they're bringing over from San Francisco. So he's got that knowledge with it. Now, like you said, Alice, I don't think he has anything left, really. He didn't look like he had a lot left in San Francisco and couldn't stay healthy at all either. But it'll be interesting to see who wins that starting job. But I think Michael Carter is the most talented back in that field right now, so he should end up eventually winning that starting job. But it'll be interesting to see, and that's a camp battle for everybody to watch as well, too, to see, especially if you're in redraft leagues or you have a late Dynasty draft as well later on in the season, to keep an eye on the Jets mini camps and see who's looking good out of there.
For sure. I'm with I'm walking the line between you two here. The draft capital doesn't bother me that much. Like it is later for sure, but there were only 4 running backs ahead of him, and given that he was drafted at the very beginning of the 4th, that could mean that the Jets thought about drafting him at the 302 and just decided, that someone else fell to them that they really needed, and their next best choice was the 402. And running backs just didn't go that much in the start of this draft, and in most drafts, the first 3 rounds aren't all that running back heavy, except for the teams that desperately need one, and those teams that desperately needed them were the teams that took Najee, Etienne, arguably, and Javonte Williams. And after that, it's kind of just a who's going to fit our scheme. Michael Carter's kind of a smaller guy, so I worry about his long-term value as a workhorse. I don't think that's what it's going to be in the end. This year, it certainly could be. But I could see as the Jets continue rebuilding, maybe after they fix a little more of the defense, get a few more weapons on the outside, maybe they end up drafting more of a bruiser and go with a committee approach, depending on what this coaching staff decides they want to do and how Carter does this season. But he's not that big of a guy, so I don't expect him to have a 3-down role for the next 5 years like I would a Najee Harris or something like that. So, as with all these guys in the middle chunk here, risk reward. There's upsides and there's concerns.
I would go exactly how they ended up being drafted in going Najee, I'd probably go Javonte too. But either way, I would take those first 4 guys, the first 4 that we talked about, Najee, Etienne, Javonte, and Trey Sermon, ahead of Michael Carter. but I think Michael Carter is still worthy of a late round flyer. You mentioned him being a small back. I could see kind of like a Devontae Freeman type of, and Freeman had, he only had a 2 or 3 year span where he was relevant, but those 2 or 3 years are freaking sweet when they happen. So, and this is probably going to be either this year or next year. I think, maybe both his rookie and second year might be his best opportunity given the current running back situation out in New York.
Yeah, even in redraft leagues too, he's somebody that I take a flyer on later on too over some of the like Mark Ingram, like some of those types of guys. When you're sitting there deciding between just garbage at the running back position, to just take a flyer on him in hopes that he's got some production early on for you, and then you can plug him into your lineup later on in the season too. So.
Yeah, like a redraft, if you're doing a 0 RB strategy and just loading up on receivers, tight end, QB, all of that first, then when you're taking your 4 running backs in a row, you can make him one of them. That he's a good fit for that role. That could be said of the next guy too here. Kenny Gainwell, out of Memphis, drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles in the early 5th round at the 6th pick. Big time pass catcher, definitely not a between the tackles bruiser. What do you think of his fantasy value long term?
I think it's good. I'm interested to see Philly's offense now that Jalen Hurts has had a full offseason as well as the starting quarterback, to see kind of the rapport and everything there. Miles Sanders struggled at times last year. He didn't look like his rookie season, so I think his leash is a little bit shorter as well. So I think Gainwell's got all the opportunity to come in, especially right away as the passing down back on third downs, and give you some PPR points for those of you in PPR leagues. So he's somebody you can draft later on in the draft and hopefully be able to plug in for some points there. And who knows, if Miles Sanders struggles coming in to start, he might start getting some more work too in the run game.
Yeah, Gainwell's going to have to be, if you're going to pick him up, you're going to have to be in a PPR league. He's going to lose a lot of value, I think, if in a non-PPR league. But I think at this point most leagues tend to be PPR type.
At least
leagues.
half.
So yeah, so he's going to be a relevant player at that point. The other thing to consider is if Philly is losing in a lot of games, then Gainwell is probably going to get more time just because of his pass catching ability. I mean, that's what he was drafted for that skill set, and they're going to probably use him in that way.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a good shot that he ends up as sort of a regular third down back for them. Definitely the pass catching guy. They have Miles Sanders, who when healthy is good between the tackles, and then they just signed or picked up Kerryon Johnson off of the Lions. He will be a plug and play guy behind Miles Sanders when he's hurt. Sanders has been hurt, I don't know, 2 or 3 times last year, and once the season before that, if I'm remembering this right. As a dynasty owner of Miles Sanders, he has been a little frustrating in that regard, and now that they keep packing on running backs behind him, I'm concerned Kenny Gainwell is going to take away some of that pass-catching work that was going to Miles Sanders. That bothers me as a Sanders owner. I think that he's got, a lengthy career as, I don't want to say Darren Sproles, but like Chris Thompson, any of those guys that are like running backs.
Chris Thompson again, that's your boy.
He's
stay hot, kid.
When Chris Thompson is healthy, he is a damn good pass catching running back.
Yeah,
he always
PPR
has been.
formats is fantastic. He's not one that you're proud to put in your lineup, but he gets you those 8-9 points every week. Just
it's not sexy when you plug him in. Your opponent thinks, "Oh, I've got this easy," but then you just quietly rack up, 7 catches for 70 yards and maybe a touchdown, and it ends up working out in the end. So he's valuable on a fantasy roster. He's not going to ever have a workhorse role. He will be valuable regardless, and that's why I'm content with his dynasty value. Pick him up in your rookie drafts at a value. I mean, don't go early, but late second round, if you can sneak him in the third, cool. I like him. In total opposite as far as the type of runner we have, Ramondre Stevenson drafted to New England in the 4th round, 15 pick. This guy is, baby LeGarrette Blount as far as I'm concerned. What do you guys think for his outlook at playing in New England behind Damian Harris?
Yeah, I think it's pretty decent. The only thing that concerns me is I would like him better with Mac Jones as their starter and more of your typical pocket passing role. It scares me with any New England running back with Cam Newton out there because Newton's getting the goal line work. You're not going to get those goal line touchdowns. You're going to have to break a 10-yard plus touchdown to score because otherwise it's going to be Cam running it in. So that's my only real concern with him. But as far as big bruising, yeah, I like his prospects with it. It's hard with this situation being in New England because historically we just haven't been confident starting any New England running back because historically Belichick's given them very short leashes where they fumble it, they're sitting out the rest of the game, and then it's the next man up. So who's ever got the hot hand there is usually who he rides with, and that changes game to game. So it's hard to trust any of the running backs, but he's a solid running back, so
there's no better example of Belichick having a short leash with his backs than the Jonas Gray 4-touchdown game, and then getting jack shit for the rest of his career. He ends up getting cut, I think, later that season.
Well, he missed the bus the next game or missed practice.
Is that what
he slept in for practice and he was cut that day?
That is cutthroat as hell. But I mean, I don't know how that season ended up turning out, but they probably won the Super Bowl or at least made it that year. So can't fault him for that. It's interesting that you make that comparison to Blunt, Rick, because Blunt was a pretty relevant back, but that was also when they had Brady, and you got Cam back there that's gonna steal. I don't want to just repeat what Josh said, but he's gonna steal some of those goal line carries. Yeah. So.
I mean, if we assume that Cam's not the long-term running quarterback, long-term value is still potentially there, right?
Long-term value, yes. This, if you're in a redraft, I'm not taking him because they do still have Harris, they do still have Sony Michel, and they do still have James White. So I don't know where Stevenson necessarily falls on that depth chart. He'll probably get some goal line touchdowns or goal line touches if Mac is in there, but I don't know enough about that situation to it's always so tricky with these New England running backs. It's always a by committee deal.
Yeah.
Shoot, Rex Burkhead, who was who was hardly NFL relevant, turned into a fantasy relevant player, and when he was with the Pats, but then the next week he would get one touch. So it's always a crapshoot in New England, man.
Yeah, the only one that ever seems to have some sort of role carved out each game is James White, just for his passing game. But other than that, it's tough. It's tough.
Well, I mean, Michelle was pretty baller his rookie year, and ever since then he's just kind of fallen off. Granted, he has dealt with injuries.
Yeah,
but. I mean, still, he's kind of fallen off. So it's tough for me to justify taking a Pats back, just as it, currently is.
Recently in our rookie draft for our Dynasty League, as the Damian Harris owner, I drafted Ramondre Stevenson. I'm very excited about it, not only because if Harris does go down, I've got a potential replacement given how far Sony has fallen off from his glory days, but also the long-term value of, when Cam's gone and they are starting Mac Jones on a regular basis, going back to that pocket passer, standard run game, play action type of stuff. I think that's more where Stevenson's gonna dominate and gonna get those goal line touches, all that good stuff. That's where the fantasy points are gonna come for him. Redraft this year, I'm not banking on anything at all, but if you are a Dynasty Damian Harris owner or just someone with a thinner running back core in a Dynasty league and you need to just stock up on guys in their rookie draft, I don't think that's a bad way to go. I think that he will have years where he's the relevant guy in New England because of their constant rotation of who is the guy. I don't think there's a way that he goes his rookie contract without ever being the guy in New England. So I think eventually the value will be there. Moving on to a similar runner, Chuba Hubbard, coming out of Oklahoma State, gets drafted to Carolina behind Christian McCaffrey. He was a 4th-round, 21st pick. What do you see for his prospects? Obviously, this season behind McCaffrey, not too bright unless it's a handcuff. Long term, what do you think?
I really like Chuba out of college. We were on a college football fantasy league, and I had him a few years in a row, and he's solid. I mean, he had great production, pretty much 100 yards and a touchdown almost every game for me there. So I absolutely love that. As far as his long-term prospect, it's, redraft. If you're the Christian McCaffrey owner, he's somebody to target later on in case McCaffrey goes down. We saw how valuable that role was with Mike Davis last year, so he's a great option there to be a handcuff for McCaffrey. Long-term, McCaffrey signed a big deal a couple years back, so he's locked in for a while, and he hasn't shown any signs of stopping other than injuries last year. So he's the guy there. Sorry, Chuba, but you're going to be pretty much handcuffed for the next few years. So I don't think long-term in Dynasty, any format, somebody to stash if you're the McCaffrey owner, or if you are thin, like you had mentioned with the last running back, Eric. If you're thin on the running backs, he's somebody just to kind of throw there in case of an injury, but otherwise you're not going to be able to start him with McCaffrey healthy.
Whenever I see this name come across the board, Chuba Hubbard, I always think of Chubbs from Happy Gilmore, with the one hand. But fantasy-wise, I think if you're a McCaffrey owner, you gotta, maybe take him earlier than you'd like, for, to have that real solid handcuff. But he's not going to be getting, number one back, starting, playing time, anything close to that in Carolina. The only way that I could see that happening, still, okay, timeshare is obviously going to be going McCaffrey's way. What McCaffrey does offer is obviously the ability to play out wide in that receiver or slot position, and that's where they could line up Chuba as, the de facto running back. But I wouldn't bank on any sort of like real strong relevance unless McCaffrey goes down, and therefore if you own McCaffrey, you have to get Hubbard, and they'll use him. They showed, like Mike Davis showed that was a starting running back last year after McCaffrey went down, so I could see the same type of production coming from Hubbard, right away.
Yeah, I think Hubbard is an immediate handcuff in the same sense that Tony Pollard is a handcuff, and these guys who that when they get the ball, they're going to be able to fill the role of the guy in front of them. They just don't have that starting role yet. The one piece of hope you can hold on to if you're in a dynasty, some kind of long-term league, is that all those rumors that were flying around about Carolina trading McCaffrey to get Watson before all of Watson's troubles started. That gives you some thoughts that maybe they could eventually part from McCaffrey and he goes and gets another contract somewhere else. No, obviously you can't bank on that, but you can hope if you're picking between all of these lower level rookie running backs who don't have starting jobs and they're all kind of going to be handcuffs anyway. Maybe pick the guy who the player in front of him is more likely to transition to a new team in the next year or two. This is the same sort of story is going to be true of the next few names we throw out. We don't have to spend a lot of time on these guys. Jamar Jefferson went to Detroit in the 7th round, almost Mr. Irrelevant in this draft. I wanted to throw him on this list because I did some research on him before the draft, watched some interviews. This guy is, I think he's similar to Jeff Wilson in that they both like to just run angry and they have a lot of self-confidence that when they do get the ball, they will do a lot with it. Jeff Wilson has done exactly that in San Francisco, and Jamar Jefferson is just sitting one spot away now without carry-on in Detroit behind DeAndre Swift from getting a potential starting role if an injury were to occur. I think I see the value there. You guys have any thoughts on Jamar?
No, just kind of echoing what you had said too, is that he's going to get some work there. DeAndre Swift is obviously the starter there, so somebody that you can throw on your bench that maybe he carves out more of a role as the season progresses, or like you said, handcuff-wise, that you don't ever want to see an injury, but the starter goes down with an injury, he's looking like he's the next guy up. So, but again, too, it's one of those that he's a 7th-round draft pick, so they could really cut ties with him at any point in time if he's not doing anything either. So just kind of watch the camp battles.
I got really nothing else beyond that. I mean, he's he's probably going to slot in as that third running back in Detroit behind Jamal Williams, and then obviously DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
Carry-on has moved on, so that's one less back for them to worry about. He's now in Philly.
Is anybody really worried about him?
Well, I mean, that's just one. That would just be one more guy in the running back room.
True.
I mean, Jefferson could see the field, but and if there's any injuries that pop up, that's where he may fall into place. But he's not somebody that I'd be actively targeting at this point.
If you got deep benches, you can throw him on there.
Again, that's the only situation.
Otherwise, not super necessary. Same with these next four guys. We got Javian Hawkins. He went undrafted.
My fucking dog.
Jealous's dog has been bothering him with some background noise, and I can't help but laugh when he tries to make Sonny be quiet. Javian Hawkins, running back in Atlanta. He went undrafted. People thought he would have been more of that middle to late round draft guy, and Atlanta went and got him immediately after the draft ended. He's kind of that smaller frame guy, polar opposite of what Mike Davis's quads looked like in a recent social media post.
Quadzilla.
That looked like
so Photoshop.
like a bad Photoshop job. Come on.
Wasn't even close. That was someone's torso photoshopped above his knee.
Good God.
So, very different type of player. Javian Hawkins is a pass catcher. He's not going to ever run between the tackles for Atlanta. But like we said with Kenny Gainwell, this is maybe the less sure version of Kenny Gainwell in that he could end up getting that pass catching role eventually in Atlanta. So there's some potential value there. Next, Khalil Herbert. He's going to be, the David Montgomery backup in Chicago. Tariq Cohen's going to have the pass catching role. He was a 6th round pick. Good college tape, but just like the rest of these lower level rookies, didn't impress to the point that he can be a starter immediately.
You got Damian Williams there too, so he's going to be
he's
more.
Really the fourth.
I think
he's
going to be
back out there.
Yeah, I think they're going to use him a lot
unless Damian's going to be a practice squad type of, or not practice squad, but inactive on game day or something.
Yeah, or it could be something too that he's just there as a veteran guy during training camp, and then if they see a lot from Khalil Herbert, enough to make him feel confident going into the season, they could end up cutting Damian Williams, because I don't think they gave him a ton of money that they could just use that as a roster cut too going into it. But I think they're going to use him a lot on special teams, and that's going to be mostly where his role is at right now. But
just to be clear as well, before we move on to the next guy, I just want to make it 100% known that this is not Justin Herbert's brother.
What? So, they don't look alike either.
I want everybody to know.
The next name we do want to bring up plays with Justin Herbert, or at least will be, Larry Roundtree in Los Angeles, also drafted in the 6th round. I believe he played in Mizzou. He's got an interesting running style. I was interested in him going into our rookie draft. I didn't end up taking him. I couldn't quite get behind his running style, thinking that could ever translate to fantasy value, but there is sort of that slot next to Austin Eckler as far as who's gonna be his backup, who's gonna take those spare carries that Austin doesn't take when he gets a rest. That could be Roundtree, just because Joshua Kelly didn't show anything last year that says he's going to get the role, and they no longer have boy wonder Kalen Ballage on the roster anymore. So
boy wonder Ballage.
There's a chance that Larry Roundtree gets some carries. He's probably better in a redraft than some of these other names we've already mentioned, because he's got a closer path to touches, but I don't see a world where he's ever a workhorse or a super fantasy asset.
No. I don't have much more to say on that.
There's not that much to add. I mean, he did set a career rushing record at Mizzou, but he did also play every single game his true freshman season. So that's just he just accumulated, one of those Frank Gore, Frank Gore yards, or like Craig Biggio hits. Never like a absolute monster out there, but just accumulated.
Was running in the SEC though, so there's a little bit on that.
Good defenses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last running back we want to mention, Captain America. Chris
Captain
Evans.
America.
backing up Joe Mixon in Cincinnati. He was a 6th round pick. There's just not a lot of depth on Cincinnati's running back roster, and Joe Mixon has, when he's healthy, he's awesome. He's not always healthy. So for that reason alone, Chris Evans is worth throwing on a bench if you have the space for him.
Absolutely. Especially if, you're thin on running backs. He's a guy that you can throw in there. Gio Bernard's no longer there anymore, so you can put him there in hopes that he gets some work and as a stash for handcuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got if they're going to be relying on Samaje Perine being their number 2 back in Cincinnati, that ain't good. So I would expect seeing Chris Evans on the field, and like you said, Ricky, Mixon's been hurt just about every year, and so and Evans was a huge recruit coming out of high school. He went to Michigan. He was a big deal. So
went to Michigan, spent some time in the Marvel universe. He's been all over the place.
Do they allow him to bring his shield out onto the field?
Is that an NCAA violation with his time in the Marvel films? Because they seem to get pretty much everything else. Or does this fall under name, image, and
That's a good point.
Image and likeness?
On the one hand, it doesn't use his eligibility, but on the other hand, he got paid a lot of money to do that. So seems
Trevor
to be
Lawrence
some...
got in trouble for starting a charity, like COVID relief charity, which is the biggest load of shit, by the way.
That's because the NCAA wasn't getting any money for it.
That's exactly right.
NCAA can S&D.
They can eat shit and die.
Okay,
God,
so that will
sick of
wrap
that
it up
shit.
for the running backs.
Just real quick, I wanted to make sure to mention this before we wrap everything up. To all the listeners out there, be sure to subscribe, rate, review on whatever platform you're listening on. You can find us on both Twitter and Instagram at Dead Arm Sports. Easy enough, just the name of the show. Please hit us up in the DMs. We'll try to get back to you on any questions, any comments that you guys have on the show. And, hopefully as this show continues to evolve, we'll be able to throw in some type of, a mailbag segment and everything. So just wanted to, we just had to get that out there before we wrap things up.